you said the other day, like you don't pay attention to all the bubble talk and things like that. You said your staff will tell you about metrics and things. What about the players? Do you think they're like noticing those things or being impacted or thinking about those things?
I don't think they're looking at metrics. I think they probably see stuff that's out there. It has to be on social media. They're not actively looking for it, but I'm sure some of the people that they follow on social media, they'll see some things. And I'm sure they have their own opinions, but it's not something that we have talked about.
Chad, there used to be a given, if you finished fourth in the ACC in any given year, you were in. We weren't sitting here talking about this. Why do you think that's changed?
Great question. I don't know. I mean, this has been a couple of years, and I think it's something we need to really look at as a league. The leadership in our league needs to really, we all collectively need to take a really hard look, because we need to be able to get more teams into the NCAA tournament. More teams are deserving, but we need to take a really hard look and figure out how to get it back to where you get more teams in.
How do you prepare, for a game where you don't know the opponent? Do you have a three-pronged scouting report this week?
Yeah, but we'll mostly work on us. That's the main thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, today will be the first day that we've been together since Saturday, and we'll just work on us. Try to get better. Hopefully, we're fresh, we're rested. And, we'll practice here today, travel down there, practice there tomorrow, find out our opponent tomorrow evening, and then be able to really start to hunker down on who it is we're playing. But we're looking at all three teams. The guys, my assistants, are each of them throughout the year. They're break down the scouts, and so they will have something prepared, for whoever it is we end up playing.
Jeff, what was it like for you to play in the ACC tournament when it was in Greensboro, since it was so close to home and it was such a big deal then?
When I was playing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was cool. I mean, I grew up, in North Carolina, basketball is like everything. And so when I was little, really up until, it was all throughout high school too. So it was for as long as I was in school. Like when they got to the ACC tournament, like you really didn't do anything in school. Like the teachers would pull one of those TVs in on the stand and, you'd watch it. If they couldn't get the TV with the stand, it would be over the loudspeaker. And so that's how I grew up. When my dad was an assistant at Wake, when I was in 6th through 8th grade, I got a chance to go to those games. I actually was a ball boy in the Greensboro Coliseum. So I got a chance to be down there on the floor, which was awesome, which made me dream even more about wanting to play in it. And having a chance to play in it was a dream come true. Now, during my 4 years in school, we never had much success in it. But the fact of, being able to play in it and it being right there in Greensboro and knowing all of the unbelievable players and teams and coaches and games that have been played on that floor, having a chance to play on it was very special for me.
Follow up to that, with it being in DC, that's Ishmael, like it's hometown. What's it like seeing the excitement through his eyes, and what do you anticipate it'll be like this week?
Yeah, well, it'll be, he's right there from DC. Bubbas is from Baltimore, which is right there. So it'll be, pretty cool, to be able to play there. I think anytime for these young guys, the players, to have a chance to play in a pro arena is always really exciting, really cool for them. And it'd be an unbelievable atmosphere. Washington, D.C. is an unbelievable city for basketball. They have produced and continue to produce some of the best players. It's probably, if not the best, one of the best high school leagues. D.C. Catholic League, you have unbelievable talent. And so it's a place where they really appreciate, understand, and love basketball.
Jeff, speaking, go ahead.
For Ish, obviously, when did he really grow into that sixth-man role, and what was it like for you to see that he got rewarded?
I think when he grew, I think it was probably after the Syracuse game. I think it was after that, which was his first game back from injury, from his shoulder. He didn't play as much in that game. And I think coming off the bench kind of hit him, in that game, that it was different and having to adjust and your mindset and things like that. But I thought he settled into it pretty quickly. Ish is an unbelievable kid. And I'm really honored to be on this journey with him. He's had an unbelievable journey to be where he is right now, and to watch him not just buy into the role, but thrive in it. And it helped us as a team. It's really awesome to see him be rewarded for that by being named Sixth Man of the Year.
When you make a move like that, move a guy that's been a starter, move him to the six-man role, how do you and your staff kind of coach a player through that process? How do you reassure him through that whole process?
Well, I think the main thing was, him still feeling value and understanding his value to our team. And then also telling him, like, you're going to play starter minutes. Like, you're still a starter. It's just something that I felt like was best for our team. When he got injured and didn't play in that game, I just really liked what I saw with Jaylen and Bub together. It wasn't a knock against Ish. It was just something that I saw, the way the ball moved, having two primary ball handlers in there. Ish is a ball handler as well, but Ish is more of a scorer, where those other two guys can score, but they can really facilitate. I thought it also helped take some pressure off of Bub, where he didn't have to be the primary ball handler all the time. That can wear you down. And so I was thinking long term, for the rest of our season. And so just trying to explain that to him and have him to still see and understand his value is still incredibly high for our team.
Do you like moving the tournament out of Carolina once in a while?
Yeah, I think it's, being able to move and go to different places. I know when it originally moved to Brooklyn, there was some hesitancy, especially from the North Carolina schools. I know when I was there, I was coaching there when it was in Brooklyn the first time. I thought it was awesome. Now, I may have thought that because we won it, but I just thought it was awesome. It was in D.C. one year when I was back as an assistant at Duke. I thought that was really cool. So yeah, I think it's good.
What about Pittsburgh?
Sure, if people will come out and support it, yeah, I think it would be great.
What does it say about your program to have back-to-back Sixth Man of the Years in Nike, Spandy, and Ish?
Well, I think it shows that, we have really good guys that are about what's best for the team. And, one of the things we try to talk to them about from the time we start recruiting them, and especially when they decide to come here, is to be a great teammate. That's the very first thing, like be a really good teammate and then become a great teammate. Nike accepted that role last year. It was difficult a little bit for him, especially early. And for him, it was different because he was coming off of an injury where he hadn't played in a year. He thought he was back 100%. He really wasn't, as far as games and things like that. It took him a little bit to get back into the rhythm of it, but when he did, he was outstanding. And then our team took off because of that. Ish didn't have an injury where he missed a year. He had been a starter for us throughout and had been really, really good. I just felt it was something that was different. And so for him to buy into it shows what an unbelievable teammate he is. And, putting the team, I'm not saying putting the team first, but it's equal. It's him and the team. He understands the value of the team and what we need. But most importantly, he still understands his value.
Jeff, it was a historic first game for Bub. And how did you see him kind of handle the ups and downs of a nearly full season now? And what do you think he's learned from this?
Well, it's been an unbelievable learning process for him. The way he started the first game, he went from a guy that no one knew who he was to now all of a sudden, after the first game, but especially after the first four, he's blown up, into this, everyone knows who he is. And when you are a guy that you've never experienced that, like, it's different. I've coached guys that they've been like the guy in basketball in their class from like ninth grade on. So they're used to the attention. They're used to everything that comes with that. throughout the high school scene. That was very different for Bub. And then after the first 4 games, like his world changes. And then you take the next 4 games, he didn't play as well. Then all of a sudden, you kind of knock back. I love the fact that he's just stayed the same. Him personally, he has stayed the same. He never got too high, he never got too low. He just stayed even keeled. I think that's a testament to him, to his parents, to his family, to his support system. I think the thing that's been really cool is even when he started like that and he had those first 4 games, he still understood that he had to learn and he had to get better. It wasn't like, oh, okay, well, I've got it all figured out now, I'm the guy, and things like that. He understood that this was going to be a process. It's really hard on these kids, man. I'm telling you, like, you know, he went from a guy, again, that no one really knew who he was. When I say no one, we did, and maybe some of the recruiting people, but it wasn't like he was, you know, supposed to be one of the guys, a McDonald's guy or things like that. And then all of a sudden, after the first 4 games, you look, he's in like the top 10 in the mock draft. And I try to tell these kids and these people, parents, like, don't pay attention to that. Like, it does not mean anything. As quickly as it's that, it can change the next day, the next week, and things like that. But it's difficult. But I'm proud of how he's navigated this whole thing, and how he's playing right now.
The last 2 years, you've recruited not only good players, but good people. How many people do you have to talk to find out about a guy's personality when you really don't know these guys until you actually get to meet them?
Yeah, well, you never know anyone until you're with them all the time. As many people as you talk to, you know, you try to talk to them, as many people as you can around the kid. You try to spend as much time as you can with them during the process. One of the things that's been great the past couple of years is that we've been able to get them on campus. You know, we went through I think it was about an 18-month period where we couldn't have people on campus because of the pandemic. And so it's helped to be able to be back out there, to get them on campus, to spend quality time with them. But it's a whole process that you go through. And we've been very fortunate to get really good guys.
Jeff, speaking of recruiting, you know, how important is it to you to have a coaching staff that's diverse and reflects maybe the makeup of your roster?
I just think it's important to have a really good coaching staff. And I've been fortunate during my time here that we've had that. All 3 of the full-time assistants, when I say full-time, the guys that can go on the road, you know, they've all been head coaches. They all have head coaching experience. They all played college basketball. They all were captains of their teams, and their teams were pretty good when they played there. So they understand it from a player side. They understand it from a coach side. All 3 of them, their fathers were coaches, so they grew up with it. And so the impact on young people is very personal to them. And then this year, obviously, we've been able to add 2 more coaches, and that's Kyle and Gil. Both guys played college basketball. Both guys have been in coaching, and they want to give back. Kyle's father is a coach. You know, he was a coach. And so I just think it's really important to have good assistants, good people, guys that are about the right things, that are about trying to help these young people get better. We've been very fortunate to have that and to have the continuity with that.
The reason I asked, I have a colleague, Aaron Beard in North Carolina, was working on a story on, I think the number of black assistants in the Power 5 conferences going up. I think the percentage is almost 60%. 10 years ago, it was around 50. And I guess is that something as a coach that you were an assistant 10 years ago, now you're a head coach, you're the first person of color to have this position at this school. Is that something you notice when you look at sidelines? Do you see any sense of progress in terms of opportunities for black assistants?
Yeah, and for black head coaches. I mean, I think we have 9 in our league. You know, it used to be for the longest time that, you know, the black coaches were just the recruiters. You charged to go recruit black players, to go into neighborhoods, to go into places that maybe, you know, white coaches felt like they couldn't get into or didn't feel comfortable going into. I think we've certainly made so much progress since then, with the opportunities and black coaches being seen in a different light, being seen for their mind, their X and O's, their strategy, not just being able to recruit or being able to connect with a certain demographic. So yeah, I've certainly seen growth in that from assistants and from head coaching opportunities.
But is that still important though, for if you're recruiting a black player to have a black coach be the assistant, be the first point of contact, or does it matter?
It depends on the kid. It depends on the family. It depends on the situation. You know, I think it helps. I don't know if it hurts. You know, there have been some white assistants or head coaches that have been really good going in to get black players and going into different places. So I think it just depends on the situation, depends on the kid.
Jeff, I'm wondering if you've seen the news about Dartmouth's men's basketball team unionizing, and if you had any thoughts on it, especially as it relates to the constant changing of the business of the sport.
I've seen it. I haven't really studied it. I haven't really paid much attention to it. So I don't know exactly where it will go. I do know that there's going to continue to be drastic change, or I feel like there's going to continue to be drastic change in college athletics. It's changing. And everyone has to be able to adapt to it, whatever the changes are. I don't know what they're going to be, but I know they're coming. It's a different day. And, you know, even I'm not old, but I'm not the young 27-year-old anymore. You know, when I first became a head coach either. You know, I grew up around the game, you know, from the time I was in 6th grade. I've been around college basketball, like deeply around it, you know, from my dad being an assistant to being a Division II head coach from 9th through 12th grade, and then obviously me going to college. It's completely different from back when I played. It's completely different from when I first started. It's completely different from when I took this job, you know, 6 years ago. And so you have to be able to adjust and adapt. I mean, you can sit and complain all you want about the old days and about the way it was, or about this isn't right or whatever. If you just sit around and do that, you're probably not going to be in it that long. So you have to be able to, you know, adapt and change to the climate and what's happening.
Jeff, do you think one of those changes is going to be an expansion of the field at some point? I know they're talking about going maybe to 72 or maybe.
Yeah, I think it. Yeah, I think it should. And I get some of the purists that you don't mess it up. It's at 68. You don't mess it up. You know, I wonder if people felt that way back when it was at 16. When it was at 16 and went to 32, it probably was a thing, but it got better. When it was at 32, I think it went to 48. Like I think it got, when it went to 48 to 64, like it got better. And when it went to 68 and you introduced the first 4, it still was really, really good. And so I think it should be changed. You know, I think it should be more opportunity. The NCAA tournament is the greatest sporting event. And I think if you give more young people opportunities to experience it, like what's bad about that? I've never understood the argument with that, because every time it's expanded, it's continued to get better. And so I do think, I'm not saying that you double it, I'm not saying that, but I do think it's time for it to expand a little bit.
I mean, it's such a revenue driver. I mean, when the TV contracts are worth a lot of money, and if you add 4, 8 games, whatever, that's even more. And I would imagine, considering how much money is required almost to kind of run these programs and, you know, these opportunities, it's where it has to, right? Just to sustain itself.
I've never seen anyone not want to make more money, especially the NCAA, and especially all the lawsuits that they have against them. And so I couldn't imagine it not expanding at some point.
Jeff, all other things being equal, when you see a guy, you're trying to hire somebody and you see he's the son of a coach, does that make your eyes perk up a little bit and say, I want to talk to this guy?
It doesn't make it, not necessarily that. I may feel like a kindred spirit, or maybe, you know, we have something in common. You know, when I was putting together my staff here, I didn't even realize that. Obviously, I knew my brother, you know, but I didn't even realize that. We were on a Zoom one time. This was during the pandemic, and we were doing our presentation, and I actually, for the first time, said it on the Zoom to the kid and his family. That's when I realized, like, my goodness, like all of our fathers were coaches. We grew up sons of coaches. We grew up, with having the players at our house, and players were our babysitters. And I know for my brother and me, we were like the ball boys for his high school team, my dad's high school team, and when he was in college at Wake, and we were always around the team. I mean, I remember vividly like hanging out in the dorms with Muggsy Bogues and the guys at Wake Forest, and I'm in 6th and 7th grade thinking I'm them. The first concert I ever went to was with those guys. I remember when I was little, like real little, I was telling my wife this the other day, like being with my dad's team at team camp, and I'm hanging out with the guys, and my dad probably put me with them so he could go hang out with the other coaches, and I'm like watching movies I shouldn't be watching, you know what I mean, at like 6, 7 years old with the guys. And so that's been my whole life. That's why team is really, really sacred to me, because I've always been around them. I've always been on teams.
Who would you have babysit your kids on this team?
My kids are of age now that I don't need it.
Well, but if they were
Yeah,
really
if they
young.
were younger. There are a lot of guys on this team, actually, that I would feel very, very comfortable with, having them watch my kids. I watch how they interact with my kids, especially my son, when he's at camp or he's around, he's in the locker room, and how they interact with the other coaches' kids. I mean, we have a good group, so I would feel comfortable with the majority. I don't know if there's anyone that I wouldn't feel comfortable with.
Jayson, I gonna win tonight?
I hope so. I hope so.
Gotta miss it.
Gotta miss it. I'll stream it. I'll be watching.